Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here today among this distinguished gathering. I take the opportunity to thank Refinitiv for inviting the Union of Arab Banks to participate in this important event. UAB, which is the Union of Arab Banks, is the largest Arab financial gathering representing over 350 members, including banks, central banks, and local banking associations from across the Arab world. And if you want to really define the Union of Arab Bank, it's a union for all Arab banks in the globe. Whenever we have a bank with a capital share more than 51%, can be a member at Union of Arab Bank, wherever he operates in the globe. As one of the gatekeepers of the Arab financial community, let me give you our perception of the development of financial crime in the MENA region and how the UAB has been actively engaged to combating financial crime. For several years, the UAB has been closely monitoring the development of correspondent banking relationship and assisting to prevent the growing risk of sanction. In this regard, UAB has organized a series of activity and awareness campaigns in several countries across the globe, including UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Egypt, Oman, Jordan, Turkey, USA, Belgium, and France, with a special emphasis on sensitive countries such as Iraq, Syria, and Sudan. In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, and in order to exchange expertise and critical information on this fundamental issue, UAB has had numerous meetings and cooperate with various international organizations, such as the US Federal Reserve, mainly the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the IMF, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, and definitely with the US Treasury Department. Despite the great achievement, or the good achievement, I may say, accomplished on a global scale in the fight against financial crime, we all know that this phenomena continue to pose a grave concern for countries across the world, especially those suffering from the phenomena of terrorism. It's also no hidden fact that we are in a serious battle against criminal minds fighting to put an end to their illicit behavior and safeguarding Arab banks and society by accurately defining the concept of money laundering and terrorism financing and identifying their dire effect on society and the economy. Consequently, ladies and gentlemen, the responsibilities of the compliance officers and AML head in banks and financial institutions are becoming increasingly complex as a direct result of the complexity of illegal operations performed by individuals or institutions, mainly money launderers, who are active and continuously utilizing high sophisticated technique in an attempt to breach the electronic infrastructure system of banks and financial institutions and to exploit any loophole in the financial system to achieve their illegal objective. This ultimately threatens not only targeted institutions, but the entire community. Now, this is our opinion, to be honest. Maybe the fintech people around this room will not be happy with what I'm gonna say, but I'm gonna say it. A major reason behind the complexity of the work of compliance officers is a tendency to rely heavily, perhaps overly, on technology in conducting banking and financial operation today. We are witnessing excessive reliance on financial technology, in addition to increased association with fintech companies. I'm talking about fintech companies here, and not the banking who are using the technology. In addition to increased fintech company and the emergence of artificial intelligence on the financial services landscape, which aim reducing costs to improve operation efficiency by reducing human intervention in banking operation. Now, we, of course, encourage fintech, but we have to have a good successful RegTech applications. We have to improve supervision and the monitoring capacity through digital technology and data analysis. So in the absence of successful RegTech application, all the above may result in risk that concerns cybersecurity and increased exposure and vulnerability to financial crime. So yes, we are encouraging the fintech. Yes, we are encouraging using technology, but we have to have a good RegTech applications. Central banks are requested, if I may say, to go above the regular supervision to more high-tech, sophisticated supervision to really control and regulate and supervise the electronic banking operations. Now, why, ladies and gentlemen, should we assist the Arab banking community to combat financial crime? What's the importance of the Arab banking community? The Arab banking sector is one of the largest sources of development and lending in the Arab world, for private and public alike. I'll give you some example. By end of 2018, the total asset of the Arab banking sector reached out to $3.5 trillion, where the deposit reached out to sum of $2.2 trillion. $2.2 trillion, that's almost 85% of the GDP. The 3.5 of asset is like 140 of the GDP. It's even bigger than GDP. This is the total asset of the Arab banking sector. Now, talking about a little bit about lending, we reach out $2.0 trillion, which is 75% of the GDP. So this is why Arab banks are very important to the economy in our region. Now, what UAB role? What UAB have done for really combating financial crime? We adopt 5 major initiatives. First, awareness programs. In 2018 only, the UAB already trained and gathered over 2,200 participants by performing conferences, forums, seminars, and training on international laws and regulations, compliance requirements, anti-corruption and anti-money laundering topics. We have also launched 2 main initiatives. The first one represents a platform for dialogue between Arab banks and US banks. And the second one representing a dialogue between Arab banks and EU banks. So we call US MENA Private Sector Dialogue and EU MENA Private Sector Dialogue. Now, the beauty of these 2 initiatives that when we host a conference or a meeting, I don't want to call it conference, it's an initiative. It's a very good platform to open a direct dialogue between Arab banks and US banks. Now, this initiative is supported by US Treasury Department, and this initiative is supported by Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and that's why we host this conference at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York premises. Now, for the EU initiative, we do it also every year, and this initiative hosted by the OECD in Paris. So I look at these 2 initiatives, not only a conference, it's a strategic meeting that going on for a good and healthy dialogue between the 2 regions, between the Arab banks and US banks, between the Arab banks and EU banks. Now, this is the first initiative. What about the second? The second, we promote financial inclusion. We issue a MENA Financial Inclusion Initiative in 2015. Now, why we issue this? According to a study by Union of Arab Banks, unfortunately, 52 million in the Arab world, they are illiterate, out of which 7 million aged between 15 and 24. 5 million out of these 7 million, they never attended school. Now, I'm not talking about financially illiterate, they are illiterate. So we issue the financial inclusion, and we develop a series of social initiatives ranging from social awareness sessions and training programs for ages between 20 and 25. We teach them financial education. Now, we consider financial education as a prerequisite of financial inclusion. Now, the financial inclusion as well is, we believe that this will slow down the propaganda of terror ideology. That's very important. Now, lately, we witnessed that the increase of the financial inclusion from 22% in 2011 to 37% 17, and especially now, the using of mobile banking that encourage the financial inclusion, the technology encourage the financial inclusion. But the most important for us is financial education as well. Now, the financial education for educated people, not only for non-educated people. Initiative number 3, SME lending. Encouraging SME lending and job creation. We believe that fighting unemployment is one of the strongest means to indirectly fight terrorism. So UAB urged government banks and central banks to stimulate job creation via promoting SME lending and creating tailored banking products and services that encourage entrepreneurship and innovation. Now, the bad news is when I spoke about the 2.3 in total lending coming from the Arab world, only 10% go to SME. This is our study, which is bad. So we encourage Arab banks to put their lending in social and economic development, not in depreciation loan. Now, the private-public partnership is the fourth initiative. The UAB believe that in combating corruption and money laundering, there's a direct relation between local government agency, number 1, security forces, legal agencies, and bank. This cooperation is very important to fight financial crimes. As such, UAB developed close ties with the public sector, inviting them to all our relevant events as to ensure their awareness and collaboration. We also signed a memorandum of understanding with the Council of Arab Interior Ministers. Now have one woman interior minister in my country. Now, the last initiative, which is the most important initiative for us, is the MENA FCCG, which I am the chair. MENA Financial Crime Compliance Group. I'm gonna speak a little bit about it and my remarks. Now, to help compliance community face the wave of new financial crime trends, the Union of Arab Banks and Refinitiv collaborated in establishing and managing the MENA Financial Crime Compliance Group. Now, what's the MENA FCCG? The MENA FCCG is one of the largest and most assorted voluntary body of Arab compliance executives that seek to bring collective action in the fight against money laundering and terrorist financing in the region. The group comprises of 13 banks from 9 MENA countries, including Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Individually, each group member represents one of the largest, most influential financial institutions within this country. Together, these 13 banks, which is most probably the biggest 13 banks in the region, they represent almost 26.4% of the total assets of the Arab banks, of all banks in the Arab world, not of all Arab banks, of all banks in the Arab world. These 13 banks represent 26% of the total asset, and 27% of the deposit. Same number for the loan. And if we look at what their branches networking, it's over 3,600 branches. Currently, as I mentioned, the group is chaired by myself, being the Secretary General of Union of Arab Banks, and co-chaired by Mr. Michael Moutassien from the Arab Bank, advised by my colleague, Mr. Antoine Hbeish, and our Secretary General, the champion, Mr. David Shepard, from Refinitiv, whom we thank for their dedication and vision. Now, a special thanks, really, from all my heart, from UAB, a special thanks to and appreciation to Nabil Najjar and to Phil Cotter for their unlimited support to the group. Thank you so much, Nadeem. Thank you so much, Phil. Now, I don't want to talk too much about this MENA FCCG. We've done a lot of work. A lot of good work has been done. We issue multiple articles, white papers, webinar. But for me, probably the most important for this group in the region, in our region, in the MENA region, when you heard one of the international group like Wolfsburg, everybody knows Wolfsburg, it's the biggest 13 banks in the world, who represent the main correspondent banking. When you heard them telling us, now we have a group to speak with in the MENA region. Thank you so much.